Imagine being an American colonel just injured and wedged into this crack in a rock on a 7,000-foot mountain deep inside Iran.
Right, just totally isolated.
Exactly. Hundreds of enemy soldiers are literally swarming the slopes right below you.
Yeah.
Your $90 million jet is just a burning wreck miles away.
Wow.
And the only thing keeping you alive is, well, this phantom web of CIA lies, basically convincing an entire nation's military to look the other way.
It really is the ultimate collision of high-tech supremacy and just, primal boots-on-the-ground endurance.
Yeah.
I mean, we so often think of modern warfare as this sanitized, digital process happening on screens thousands of miles away.
Totally.
But this operation really forces us to look at what happens when all that technology fails, and you are just left with a human being trying to survive.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're taking you straight into the mechanics of this harrowing, honestly unprecedented 24-hour military operation to rescue a downed F-15 colonel.
It is a wild timeline.
It really is. And to piece this all together for you, we are synthesizing on-the-ground reporting and analysis from Al Jazeera and Time.
And we really need to point out up front that because this rescue takes place in the middle of a deeply volatile, incredibly deadly conflict, the U.S.-Israel war on Iran, we are looking at sources from across the spectrum.
Right.
Our goal today isn't to take a side, endorse a policy, or, debate the military actions outlined in these articles.
Exactly. We're just laying it out.
Right. We are simply here to cut through the noise and impartially report the facts, ensuring you get a neutral synthesis of exactly how this specific 24-hour operation played out on the ground.
So we are dissecting an evasion up a treacherous mountain, a massive disinformation campaign designed to trick a foreign military, and some unconventional civilian assistance.
Not to mention the deliberate destruction of hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. aircraft by their own troops.
Yeah, that part is just crazy. But to really grasp the mechanics of this rescue, we have to first establish the explosive reality this airman dropped into.
I mean, the environment could not have been more hostile. According to the reports, this war began just over a month prior, on February 28, 2026.
Right.
And the inciting event was the surprise U.S.-Israel attack that resulted in the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei.
Which is just a massive geopolitical earthquake. And the human toll from that initial strike and, well, the weeks of bombing that followed has been staggering.
Absolutely staggering.
The reports note that the initial strike also killed more than 100 school children.
Yeah, and the broader statistics really paint a very grim picture of the landscape the rescue teams had to navigate.
What were the numbers on that?
Well, the U.S.-based rights group HRENAB provided a toll leading up to this mission. They reported 3,531 people killed by bombing in Iran.
Wow.
Yeah, and that includes 1,607 civilians and at least 244 children.
It's just devastating.
It is. And on the U.S. side, 13 service members had been killed with over 300 wounded.
That is the powder keg. And the match drops on Friday, April 3. An American F-15E Strike Eagle is flying over southwestern Iran, and it gets shot down.
Right. And it was actually the first U.S. military aircraft fall inside Iran since the war began.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was the first.
Yeah. And the F-15 has a two-person crew, right? You have the pilot and the weapon systems officer, or WSO.
Right.
Ejecting from a fighter jet is an incredibly violent, traumatic, physical event. They punch out, but they don't land together.
The pilot hits the ground and is rescued relatively quickly by U.S. forces.
Yeah.
But the WSO, who President Donald Trump later identified as a highly respected colonel, is missing.
Just gone.
Yeah. He is alone behind enemy lines. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
If we look at the mechanics of this conflict, it's less like a strategic chessboard and more like a high-speed highway. Both sides are moving at 100 miles an hour with established massive targets.
I like that analogy.
Right? And suddenly, a massive boulder, a downed, highly valuable American colonel, drops directly into the middle of the fast lane.
Yep.
Every single asset on both sides has to instantly swerve, brake, or redirect to deal with this one highly localized immediate crisis.
That abrupt shift in momentum is exactly what happened. For Washington, the entire focus of the war in that sector just narrowed down to one man.
They drop everything.
Exactly. And for Iran, the strategic windfall of capturing a high-ranking American officer on their own soil is massive.
I mean, obviously.
It's an intelligence goldmine and just a profound propaganda victory.
So the hunt is on immediately. The colonel is on the ground, likely dealing with injuries from the ejection, and he immediately has to fall back on his SEER training.
Right. Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape.
Exactly, just to survive the elements in the pursuit. He hikes up a 7,000-foot mountain ridgeline and wedges himself into a rock crevice.
The physical toll of that alone is immense. He's navigating this treacherous terrain while being actively hunted.
Yeah.
Reports from Axios, citing defense officials, stated that the pilot and the colonel were separated by a couple of miles.
Okay.
And there were hundreds of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, soldiers swarming that specific area.
Hundreds of heavily armed soldiers sweeping the mountainside for one person. And Washington is watching this unfold, knowing the local populace is being incentivized to join the hunt.
Right, the bounty.
Bounty, yeah. Iran actually issued a public plea offering a $60,000 reward for information.
Which is a huge amount of money.
It is. Videos even surfaced online showing local Iranian civilians forming independent search parties to track the airmen down.
The pressure on that mountain was just suffocating. But amidst all of that, the colonel wasn't entirely silent.
He had a radio, right?
He did. He managed to activate an emergency beacon, though the signal was intermittent, just flashing on and off.
Okay.
He also managed to send out a short radio message. According to a defense official speaking to Axios, the message was simply, "God is good."
You would assume hearing a voice on the radio would be a massive relief for the rescue coordinators, but reading the reports, it actually triggered a wave of panic in Washington. Why?
Well, what's fascinating here is this sheer psychological tension of verifying identity through the fog of war.
Right.
President Trump noted that the message sounded like "power be to God" and remarked that it sounded like something a Muslim would say.
Interesting.
Yeah, that specific phrasing caused genuine fear among U.S. officials. They suspected the absolute worst-case scenario.
Which is what?
That the airman had already been captured, and the IRGC was using his radio to broadcast a false signal.
Ah, a bait and ambush tactic. But how does a military command actually process that in real time?
It's incredibly difficult.
You have an intermittent distress signal from one of your own, which demands immediate action.
Right.
But if you trust it blindly, you risk flying heavily armed, highly valuable rescue helicopters directly into a pre-planned kill zone.
You don't trust it blindly. You can never risk sending a massive extraction force into an unverified drop zone.
So what do?
The doctrine in these situations dictates that you need secondary independent verification of the target.
Okay.
And simultaneously, you have to completely disrupt the enemy's situational awareness. If you can't blast your way through hundreds of troops safely, you basically have to blind them.
So if brute force is off the table because of the ambush risk, Washington is left with only one option. They have to wage an information war.
Exactly.
And that meant handing the reins over to the CIA.
Right. According to the sources, the CIA launched a massive disinformation campaign inside Iran.
How does that even work on the fly?
Well, they actively spread false rumors that both crew members of the downed F-15 jet had already been found and that the U.S. was simply working on exfiltrating them.
It's wild to think that in an era of satellite tracking and cyber warfare, the CIA's most effective weapon in those crucial hours was essentially starting a massive neighborhood rumor mill to lower the guard of the Iranian military.
I know, right? But information warfare relies heavily on exploiting existing communication channels.
So they just tapped into what was already there.
Exactly. While the reports don't detail the exact methods, operations like this typically involve injecting false intelligence into enemy radio frequencies.
Okay.
Or leveraging clandestine networks on the ground, or creating digital breadcrumbs that lead enemy analysts to the wrong conclusions.
Make them think they missed the target, so they redirect their resources elsewhere.
Exactly that.
While that deception was playing out, the CIA also used classified technology to definitively locate the airman. They proved it was actually him, entirely independent of that intermittent, highly suspicious radio beacon.
And they went further than just technological surveillance.
What else did they do?
They facilitated what military terminology calls an unconventional assisted recovery.
Which means what, exactly?
The CIA literally reached out to local Iranian civilians in the area who were willing to aid or shelter U.S. military forces.
Think about the immense, potentially lethal risk those civilians were taking. Assisting a downed American pilot while the IRGC is actively patrolling the area with a $60,000 bounty on his head.
It's incredible. It highlights that even in a heavily militarized, heavily monitored state, there are always complex local dynamics and human networks that intelligence agencies can leverage.
Yeah, that human element.
Exactly. Furthermore, the U.S. wasn't operating entirely alone in this shadow war. Israeli officials told Axios that they shared vital intelligence regarding the situation on the ground.
And they went far beyond just handing over intelligence files.
Yeah.
The Israeli Air Force actually carried out a specific strike designed to block Iranian forces from advancing on the area where the rescue was going to take place.
Right.
President Trump described the alliance by saying, "We are like a big brother and little brother." Here's where it gets really interesting. If you look at this phase of the operation, the CIA's tactics function exactly like a massive, high-stakes digital sleight of hand.
Oh, for sure.
They are forcing the enemy military to look at the wrong hand, to chase false rumors, while the actual physical extraction is being maneuvered right under their noses.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely redefines the mechanics of a modern military rescue.
How so?
It is no longer just about sending the cavalry low over the trees. A successful extraction today requires synthesizing cyber warfare, localized disinformation campaigns, clandestine civilian networks, and international allied intelligence.
All working together.
Right, all perfectly timed, just to create a temporary, incredibly fragile bubble of safety around one person.
But eventually you have to pop that bubble. You can't extract a wounded man from a 7,000-foot mountain using only rumors and cyber attacks.
No, you definitely can't.
You need hardware. Massive physical aircraft. And hardware, no matter how advanced, can fail.
And the physical reality of the extraction was staggering in its scale. This wasn't a quick 10-minute snatch-and-grab operation.
It took hours. Right?
The rescue took 7 hours. The U.S. actually established a temporary operating base deep inside Iran to facilitate the movement of these assets.
President Trump stated he ordered dozens of aircraft carrying lethal weapons to retrieve the colonel.
Dozens of aircraft.
Yeah. According to the New York Times, U.S. aircraft were dropping bombs on convoys that were attempting to approach the area where the airman was hiding.
The amount of cover fire required to keep the IRGC at bay while the commandos reached the colonel points to an incredibly chaotic, intense environment.
That sounds like a movie.
It really does. But they finally secured him. He was seriously wounded, but alive.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, the extraction team loaded him onto waiting MC-130J aircraft to get him out of the country.
For context for you listening, the MC-130J isn't just a standard transport plane. It's a specialized, highly modified variant of the Hercules.
Right, it's packed with gear.
Exactly. Packed with classified avionics, terrain-following radar, and electronic warfare systems used specifically by special operations. According to the Wall Street Journal, they cost more than $100 million apiece.
And that is when a catastrophic malfunction occurred.
Oh, man.
The sources don't fully explain the technical specifics of the failure, but the result was that these massive, highly advanced aircraft were disabled, sitting on the ground in hostile territory.
Which leads to a decision that is hard to even wrap your head around.
It really is.
To prevent these $100 million transport planes and all the classified technology inside them from being captured and reverse engineered by the Iranian military, the U.S. forces intentionally destroyed them.
Yeah.
They blew up their own planes on the ground. And not just the 2 MC-130Js. According to the Times, they also destroyed 4 helicopters during this operation.
It is a drastic measure, but it is the absolute uncompromising standard protocol when advanced assets are compromised in enemy territory.
We've seen this before. Right.
We saw similar protocols during the Osama bin Laden raid with the stealth helicopter. You use specialized explosives to melt the avionics and destroy the airframe so adversaries gain zero technological advantage.
Makes sense, but still.
However, we have to note the deep fog of war regarding how these planes were lost. The narratives diverge wildly.
They do. While U.S. officials say they blew up the planes due to a malfunction, Iran's state TV aired footage claiming that their military shot down these transport planes and the 2 helicopters during the operation.
The chaos extended far beyond that specific extraction site, too.
Right.
There are reports of a firefight in the Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province where 9 people died in strikes.
Though Al Jazeera noted it was unclear if that was directly tied to the rescue mission.
True. We also know that during the initial search operation on Friday, 2 rescue helicopters were hit, and another U.S. warplane, an A-10 Warthog, went down near the Strait of Hormuz.
The pilot of that A-10 managed to eject and was rescued, but again, the stories conflict.
Always.
Iranian media claimed their air defenses brought the Warthog down and released a video as proof, while U.S. officials haven't confirmed the cause of the crash. The sheer volume of metal falling from the sky over these 24 hours is astounding.
It really is. But despite the malfunctions, the losses, and the heavy fire, the commandos and the injured colonel were reloaded onto 3 replacement aircraft.
And they made it out.
And they made it out.
President Trump announced the success on Truth Social just after midnight on Sunday, posting, "We got him," in all caps.
Yeah, that was the big announcement.
He confirmed the colonel was seriously wounded but safe and sound, noting he was rescued in broad daylight during a second raid. He even scheduled an Oval Office press conference with the military to discuss the details.
Right.
So what does this all mean? When you look at the sequence of events, the intense, split-second decision-making required on the ground is staggering.
Completely.
Imagine being the commander who has to give the order to detonate your own massive transport planes in the middle of a foreign country, knowing your team is still actively trying to escape an advancing army.
This raises an important question about the modern mechanics of military commitment. Think about the ledger of this single operation.
They're massive.
The U.S. intentionally destroyed over $200 million worth of MC-130Js, plus 4 helicopters. They lost the original $90 million F-15E. They lost an A-10 Warthog. And earlier in the conflict, the U.S. had already lost 3 F-15s to friendly fire over Kuwait and a refueling aircraft over Iraq.
The financial cost is almost unfathomable.
Yet, the immense material, financial, and strategic cost expended to rescue a single individual perfectly highlights the core psychological doctrine of the U.S. military.
Leaving no man behind.
Exactly. The financial toll, the loss of cutting-edge technology is all viewed as secondary to upholding that operational promise to the soldier on the ground. You will spend $250 million to ensure that promise is kept.
Let's try to distill the sheer magnitude of what we've covered.
Good idea.
A single down jet triggered a wildly complex 24-hour saga. You have a wounded colonel relying on fundamental survival training wedged into a mountain crevice 7,000 feet up.
Yeah.
You have the CIA spinning up clandestine civilian networks and spreading local rumors to blind an entire army. You have international intelligence sharing, with Israel launching targeted blocking strikes.
Right.
And it all culminated in the deliberate fiery destruction of a small fleet of incredibly expensive U.S. aircraft, just to get one wounded man home.
It is a remarkable sequence that exposes both the deep fragility and the overwhelming reach of a modern military apparatus.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a thought to chew on today as we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We started by exploring how warfare today is defined by high-tech drones, satellite surveillance, billion-dollar stealth jets, and intricate digital deception.
Yes.
But isn't it incredible that the absolute fulcrum of this massive multinational operation, the very thing that dictated the movement of dozens of aircraft, hundreds of troops, and millions of dollars in resources, still came down to the oldest human element of all?
It really did.
One person hiking up a mountain, hiding in a crack in the rocks, relying entirely on their own sheer physical endurance.
Wow.
It begs a serious question for you to consider. As warfare becomes increasingly automated, more distant, and more digital, does the vulnerability and the immense unquantifiable value of single human life actually increase?
A profound dynamic to consider.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.